welcome back to News from the Hosts. I'm here with Peter Connolly, who is Regional Manager for EnerNOC. Thank you for joining me, Peter.
Thanks, Gary.
And thank you for joining Host in Ireland. It's your first year.
Yeah, it's great to be part of it.
Yeah, so EnerNOC, a name that probably doesn't roll off the tongue, but certainly part of a big outfit, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you may not know EnerNOC, but you may be familiar with our parent company, Enel. Enel are the former Italian utility, the monopoly there, who have diversified over the last number of years, and now they're in most global markets now, supplying all sorts of things from green power to home technologies to citywide grid scale energy initiatives. And of course in Ireland we focus an awful lot on large industrial users, and we're starting to look into the mobility space now, both from a battery perspective but also from a charging perspective as well.
So the Italians have exported enough wine and pasta, and they're now exporting intellectual talent.
Absolutely.
Because obviously when you talk about data centers, you can't talk not about energy, on the basis that it's in excess of 60% of the operating costs of a post-construction. So where do you look at, like when you're looking at a data center and you're looking at the energy aspect, what filter are you applying to see where do you play in the supply, obviously, or the reduction, or where would you see yourself playing?
So data centers for us are a fantastically interesting space. I guess up until more recent times, we've been predominantly focused on other sort of large industrial type users, pharmaceuticals, large manufacturers, those types of companies.
Okay.
But with the data revolution, I guess, that's going on now, the data centers are a major part of our business these days.
Okay.
And I guess
your focus on reduction of cost. I mean, that's what you're selling, isn't it? Effectively, or increase in revenue. What would you?
Yeah, I suppose a lot of those things, and it depends whose perspective you're looking from. Of course, I think one of the challenges for data centers at the moment is not only, of course, is connectivity, but power in those connected regions. What we help those guys with is flexibility, being flexible. Being a flexible contributor on the grid means that you aren't always seen as this big entity and taking power all the time. I think if we some of the people we work with already in this space tell us that working with us provides them with a lot of good relationships with the grid operators, which is a very positive thing for them when the industry's growing so much as it is. So,
and it's a really interesting discussion that you bring us onto, because globally there's very few grid operators and data center operators that sit in harmony. Mainly because, I guess you know this, is that if they could only use what they've been provisioned, then basically there wouldn't be such an issue. But
yes.
44% I think was mentioned earlier at an event here in Dublin, that's what they're using of what they've been provisioned. So the grids obviously have to nail that.
Yes.
And that's what you give that flexibility, that when you're not using that 56%, you give an option. Is that because I know that many of the people listening hear Enel and they probably think of supply.
Yeah.
So maybe you just want to tell us a little bit about that 56%. How does it work? How do you give it back?
Yeah, so what we do is that we provide a flexibility or a resilience to the electricity grid, so that when the grid gets in times of stress or a close margin between the supply and demand relationship, they need to deploy certain types of assets. They have two choices. One, they could deploy a peaking power plant, another large generator sitting on the system waiting to kick in. Or two, they could work with somebody like us, who we operate a virtual power plant. So we would send a signal or a phone call or an email to a data center or a large industrial or somebody like that, and they reduce their consumption. So that the net effect.
It sounds so simple, huh?
Yeah. The net effect is that power is reduced on the grid.
And it's obviously, like all these things, as nothing like a challenge globally of energy to create an opportunity to reduce it and get people thinking about how they can solve the solutions, and that's what you're feeding into.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned to me before that the interesting thing about your operation here in Ireland is that you're using it, or the organisation is using it as an exemplar in many respects, due to the proximity, I guess, of the blend of hyperscales, co-location, managed services.
Yeah.
And how do your international colleagues take to your learnings? Do they?
Well, I guess we're probably not unique in the context of Irish businesses, in that we're very lucky to have a very close-knit ecosystem of all these different people. Ireland, Dublin is a very small place, and we have all these people on our doorstep. Okay. So of course we have these relationships, and I think from a global perspective, they're jealous that we can go down the road and meet, you know, the person from that company or the other company that we need to get together to build these solutions.
Yeah.
So we're very lucky to have that. I guess all those resources, that brain power, right on our doorstep to build these initiatives.
And do you go now? Has it given you a springboard, possibly, to go with some of these relationships or contracts, to go outside of Ireland with the contracts? Is that the happening?
Yeah, we believe it has. Actually, being a part of this group helps us an awful lot with that. The energy conundrum is it's not easy, and it's not something we can do on our own. And there are many different players, many industries. There's you know, one of your other speakers spoke about the different paces of the energy industry versus the data industry. And that's our challenge. Our challenge is creating technologies that can help
dovetail. You're nearly dovetailing the two.
Yes.
If I think you're referring to David, he was saying one's working at 100 miles an hour, the other's working at 10.
Yes.
You need to be able to have one that's running at 25 to dovetail the two.
Exactly.
So if you were sitting here, Peter, let's say this time next year, what's been a good year? What would have happened, or what would have not happened?
I think from an energy perspective, our industry in Ireland is going through a big change at the moment. We're connecting from a market perspective into the rest of Europe, and it's presenting an awful lot of opportunities, but also challenges. Not just for us, but for everybody.
Right.
So if we can navigate this year and make sure that everybody that's currently connected in the right way to the market is still in that way at the end of the year, and have maximized some of the opportunities out there, it'll have been a fantastic
So it is a
year.
bit like the overarching global data center industry. It's
Yes.
a bit like awareness, perception, and then education.
Yes.
And that's the bit that most people get over. So thank you, Peter.
Thanks
I
very
hope
much, Garry.
you have a great year, and
Thank you.
I hope I'm sitting here next year, we're having the same discussion.
Likewise.
So have a good year.